The alert came at 0300 hours. Frank Morgan was deep in sleep when his comm unit buzzed to life. The Admiral groaned, reaching for the device on his nightstand. "Morgan," he answered, voice rough with sleep. "Sir, we've detected an explosion in the Kuiper Belt," said the voice of his second-in-command. "It's big. Massive energy readings." Morgan sat up, suddenly wide awake. "Natural phenomenon?" "Negative, sir. The signature matches what we'd expect from a ship's reactor going critical. A big one." 20 minutes later, Admiral Morgan stood in the United Nations Space Command Central Operations Room. The wall-sized display showed a bright flash at the edge of the solar system. "Show me the replay," Morgan ordered. The screen shifted to show the empty space of the Kuiper Belt, then a flash, followed by an expanding sphere of debris. "Analysis confirms it's artificial in origin," said Lieutenant Samantha Collins, the young tactical officer who had been on duty. "And sir, we're picking up what might be a distress signal." Morgan's eyes narrowed. "Might be? It's not using any known format, but the pattern repeats in a way that suggests intelligence." Morgan turned to face the room of officers and specialists who had been called in for the emergency. "Ladies and gentlemen, we may be looking at first contact, and it looks like they're in trouble." Within hours, the United Nations Security Council had convened an emergency session. The vote was unanimous. Earth would send help. 3 days later, the rescue fleet was ready. 6 ships, the best Earth had to offer. The flagship USS Normandy under Admiral Morgan's command. 2 medical vessels with the latest equipment. A science vessel to analyze the alien technology. And 2 protective escorts with minimal weapons, just enough to defend against asteroids or space debris. On the Normandy's bridge, Morgan looked over the assembled officers. "This is what we've trained for," he said. "A peaceful first contact. Our mission is simple. Render aid to the damaged vessel, rescue survivors if possible, and establish peaceful communications." "What do we know about them?" asked Captain Greg Patterson, commander of the Mercy, the lead medical vessel. "Very little," Morgan admitted. "But they came to our system in peace. We'll meet them with the same." Dr. Olivia Wright stood quietly at the back of the bridge. As the fleet's chief xenobiologist, she had been preparing for this moment her entire career. She had studied every theory about alien life, but nothing prepared her for the reality of actually meeting beings from another world. "Dr. Wright," Morgan called. "Your thoughts?" She stepped forward. "We should assume nothing. Their biology, psychology, and technology could be completely different from our own. We need to approach with extreme caution, not out of fear, but respect." Morgan nodded. "Well said. We'll proceed carefully." The fleet left Earth orbit the next day. The journey to the Kuiper Belt would take 2 weeks at maximum speed. During that time, Dr. Wright coordinated with the medical teams to prepare for any possible alien physiology. They set up isolation wards and sterilization protocols. Captain Patterson spent hours with Dr. Wright, learning everything he could about potential first contact scenarios. "What if they don't recognize our intentions?" he asked during one of their discussions. "We make them clear," Wright replied. "Universal concepts like medical aid should translate across species. We show them we're helping." Patterson wasn't convinced. "And if they see our fleet as a threat? That's why we're bringing minimal weapons and maximum medical equipment," Wright said. "Our actions will speak louder than any words." 13 days into the journey, the fleet approached the debris field. Scanners picked up the alien vessel, or what remained of it. The main structure was intact, though heavily damaged. "Life signs?" Morgan asked. Lieutenant Collins checked her readings. "Affirmative. Faint but present. Multiple signatures." "Captain Patterson, prepare your team. You'll make first approach with the Mercy." "Yes, sir." The Mercy moved ahead of the fleet medical teams on standby. Dr. Wright joined them, her heart pounding with excitement and apprehension. As they closed in on the damaged ship, Collins' voice came over the comms again, this time urgent. "Admiral, we're picking up energy signatures, 3 of them coming from nowhere." Morgan looked up sharply. "Explain." "They just appeared, sir. They must have been cloaked. large vessels approaching fast from behind the debris field. Before Morgan could respond, the space around them erupted in light. Energy beams cut through the darkness, striking. The USS Normandy and the escort vessels were under attack. The tactical officer's voice was steady despite the chaos. "Shields failing. Return fire," Morgan ordered. "Weapons are offline." On the Mercy, Dr. Wright and Captain Patterson watched, in horror as the alien warships, sleek angular vessels with predatory lines, continued their assault. The first escort vessel exploded in a ball of fire, fragments scattering into space. This was a trap, Patterson realized aloud. "Get us out of here," Wright urged. Patterson activated the ship-wide comm. "All hands, emergency departure. We're breaking off to report back to Earth." The Mercy turned sharply, accelerating away from the battle. On their screens they watched as the second escort was destroyed. The Normandy, badly damaged, tried to maneuver away. "We can't leave them," Wright said. "We have to," Patterson replied grimly. "Someone needs to warn Earth." As they retreated, their sensors captured everything. The attackers, the Valthuri, they would later learn, methodically destroyed the human fleet. The Normandy fought back with what little weapons it had, but it was no match for the aliens' technology. Admiral Morgan's last transmission came through broken and static-filled. "This is Admiral Morgan. We cames in peace. They, without provocation. Earth must prepare this act of war." Then the Normandy's signal went dead. The Mercy, along with one science vessel that had also managed to escape, raced back toward Earth. Behind them, the remains of humanity's first contact fleet drifted in the cold void of the Kuiper Belt. Captain Patterson stood on the bridge of the Mercy, his face hard with resolve. "Dr. Wright, compile all data on the attackers. We need to know everything we can about them." Wright nodded, her earlier excitement for alien contact replaced by determination. "They mistook our Mercy for weakness," Patterson said quietly. "That's a mistake they'll only make once." As the Mercy sped toward Earth, its crew worked tirelessly to analyze the attack. Lieutenant Collins, who had transferred to the Mercy just before the ambush, reviewed the tactical data again and again. "They knew exactly where to hit us," she reported. "They targeted our engines and communication arrays first. They've studied our ships." Dr. Wright's analysis of the attackers' vessels revealed even more disturbing news. "Their ships are designed for warfare," she told Patterson. "The distress signal was a lure. They wanted us to come." 8 days later, the Mercy reached Earth orbit. Captain Patterson, Dr. Wright, and Lieutenant Collins prepared to deliver their report to the United Nations Space Command. "How will Earth respond?" Wright asked as they prepared to board the shuttle to UNSC headquarters. Patterson's expression was grim. "The only way it can. They didn't just attack our ships, they attacked a rescue mission. They targeted medical vessels." Collins checked the data core containing the attack footage. "Earth will see exactly what happened. And then—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Earth's response was about to change the galaxy forever. Silence filled the UNSC headquarters as the recording ended. The footage from the Mercy's sensors showed the destruction of Earth's rescue fleet in brutal detail. Admiral Morgan's final words echoed in the room. General Peter Howard stood at the head of the long table. His face was stone cold as he looked at the 3 survivors who had just delivered their report. "Captain Patterson, are you absolutely certain the distress signal was a trap?" he asked. Patterson nodded. "Yes, sir. The Valthuri ships were waiting in position. They were cloaked until our fleet was in the kill zone." Lieutenant Collins stepped forward with her tactical analysis. "The attack was precise, sir. They targeted our engines and communications first, then weapons. They knew our ship designs." General Howard turned to Dr. Wright. "And you believe these Valthuri were studying us before the attack?" "The evidence suggests they've been watching us for some time," she replied. "They understood enough about our technology to set the perfect bait." Howard walked to the window overlooking the sprawling UNSC complex. In the distance, the lights of New Washington glowed against the evening sky. 4 ships destroyed, 342 personnel lost, he said quietly, on a humanitarian mission. The door to the conference room slid open, and a man in a dark suit entered. Kyle Martinez from Earth Intelligence carried a tablet with him. "General, we've found something," he said. "The Valthuri have been spotted near other systems. We've intercepted communications from the Centauri colonies. They reported unknown vessels with similar designs 6 months ago." Howard's eyes narrowed. "Were they attacked?" "No," Martinez replied. "The ships stayed at the edge of their system, observing, then they vanished. They were scouting," Patterson realized. "Studying our defenses," Martinez nodded. "We believe so. And sir, there's more. 17 minutes ago, we detected multiple objects entering the solar system. They're moving fast, following the same route our rescue fleet took." The room erupted. Inactivity. General Howard issued rapid orders, and within minutes the full United Nations Security Council was connected via emergency link. On screens around the room, faces of world leaders appeared. The president of the North American Alliance spoke first. "General Howard, we've reviewed the evidence. What are your recommendations?" Howard stood straight. "Madam President, members of the Security Council, we're facing an aggressive species with technology that outmatches our current defenses. I recommend immediate activation of the Sentinel Protocol." Murmurs spread through the council. The Sentinel Protocol had been developed after the Third World War as a last resort defense plan. It had never been activated. That would mean full military mobilization, said the European Union Chancellor, converting civilian production to military use. "Yes, sir," Howard confirmed. "And activation of the Deep Space Defense Grid." The Chinese premier leaned forward. "General, are you certain this is not a misunderstanding? Perhaps our rescue fleet was seen as a threat." Dr. Wright spoke up. "Premier, with respect, the data is clear. Our ships were clearly marked as medical and scientific vessels. The Valthuri targeted the medical ships first. This was not a misunderstanding." The debate continued for hours as the council weighed the evidence. Outside the meeting room, Captain Patterson paced nervously. "They're wasting time," he told Dr. Wright. "Every minute we debate is another minute the Valthuri have to prepare. The council needs to be certain," Wright replied. "War with an alien species. This changes everything for humanity." Lieutenant Collins approached them, her face pale. "New development. Our long-range probes have detected more Valthuri ships entering the system, at least 20 vessels, much larger than the ones that attacked us." Patterson's jaw tightened. "They're not waiting for us to decide." Back in the council chamber, Martinez interrupted the debate with the new information. The mood shifted immediately. "How long until they reach Earth?" asked the Indian president. "At current speed, 5 days," Martinez replied. The Security Council vote was unanimous. The Sentinel Protocol was activated. General Howard turned to his staff. "Send the alert to all military commands. Full mobilization begins now." As the meeting ended, a junior officer rushed in. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission. It's from the Valthuri fleet." The main screen flickered to life. The image showed a being unlike anything humans had seen before. Its skin was pale blue with ridge-like structures instead of hair. Eyes with vertical pupils stared out at them. When it spoke, the translation software struggled to keep up, but the message was clear enough. "Humans of Earth, your intrusion into our hunting grounds has been noted. Your species is young and ignorant of galactic laws. We claimed this system when your kind still lived in caves. Submit to our authority. Provide the resources we demand. Resistance will result in your extinction." The transmission ended abruptly. General Howard looked around the room at the shocked faces. "Well, that clarifies things. In the days that followed, Earth transformed. Factories converted to produce weapons and ships. Military bases that had been dormant for decades came alive with activity. In a secure facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Captain Patterson was summoned to meet with Dr. Allen Blake, head of the UNSC's Advanced Weapons Division. "Captain, what I'm about to show you is classified at the highest level," Blake said as they descended in an elevator deep underground. The doors opened to reveal an enormous hangar. Patterson's eyes widened at what he saw. Dozens of ships unlike anything in Earth's known fleet. Sleek dark vessels with advanced weapon systems. "What is this?" he asked. "Insurance," Blake replied. "After the Proxima Centauri incident 30 years ago, the Security Council authorized a secret program. We've been building these ships in case we ever encountered hostile extraterrestrial life." Patterson walked toward the nearest vessel. It was at least 3 times the size of the Normandy, with what looked like stealth technology built into its hull. "How many?" 50 combat-ready vessels, Blake said, and another 30 nearly complete. "We call them the Shadow Fleet." In another facility, Dr. Wright worked with a team of scientists to analyze the Valthuri technology from the sensor readings. Every piece of information could help find a weakness. "Their ships have incredible energy outputs," she told Lieutenant Collins during a brief break, "but there's something unusual about their shield frequencies. If we could disrupt them somehow." Collins nodded. "Keep working on it. I've been assigned to train boarding teams. If we can't destroy their ships, maybe we can capture one." Days after the attack on the rescue fleet, Earth was ready. The public announcement was brief. An alien threat had been detected, and Earth's forces were preparing to defend the planet. What the announcement didn't mention was that Earth's new fleet wasn't planning to just defend. General Howard met with the newly appointed fleet commanders in the war room. "The Valthuri expect us to cower," he told them. "They expect surrender. What they'll get is something entirely different." He turned to Captain Patterson, who now wore the insignia of an admiral. "Admiral Patterson, the Shadow Fleet is yours. Your orders are simple. Make them regret the day they attacked a human rescue mission." Patterson stood. "Yes, sir." As the commanders filed out, Howard called Patterson back. "Frank Morgan was my friend," he said quietly. "Make sure they remember his name." Patterson's expression was grim. "They will, sir. Every single one of them will." In orbit around Earth, the Shadow Fleet prepared for departure. Humanity was about to show the galaxy what happened when someone mistook human kindness for weakness. The response would be ruthless. Admiral Patterson stood on the bridge of the USS Vengeance, the largest ship in the Shadow Fleet. The name seemed fitting now. What had begun as a rescue mission had transformed into something else entirely. "Status report," he ordered. Lieutenant Collins, now his tactical officer, responded promptly. "All ships report ready, Admiral. Stealth systems are operational, weapons are hot." Patterson nodded. Around him, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. Every person there had been handpicked. Many had lost friends on the rescue fleet. "The Valthuri fleet will reach Mars orbit in 6 hours, Collins continued. "They're moving slowly, confident." "Good," Patterson said. "Overconfidence makes them vulnerable. Lieutenant, signal the fleet. We move in 3 hours. I want to be in position before they reach Mars." As the crew prepared, Patterson retreated to his ready room. On his desk sat a small memorial, a model of the USS Normandy. Admiral Morgan had been his mentor, his friend. The door chimed. "Enter." Dr. Wright stepped in carrying a tablet. "Admiral, we've completed our analysis of the Valthuri technology based on the sensor readings. Tell me you found something useful," Patterson said. Wright nodded. "We did. Their shields operate on a rotating frequency. There's a pattern. If we can match our weapons to counter those frequencies, we might be able to penetrate their defenses. Can we adapt our weapons in time?" "Engineer Daniels is working on it now," Wright replied. "She thinks she can modify the main weapons on at least 10 ships before we depart." Patterson allowed himself a small smile. "Good work, Doctor." In the weapons lab, Lisa Daniels worked frantically. She had been the lead engineer on the Shadow Fleet project for 5 years. Now her work was being put to the test sooner than anyone had expected. "Run the simulation again," she told her team. "We need to be sure the frequency modulators will hold under combat conditions." On the screen, the simulation showed a Shadow Fleet vessel firing on a Valthuri ship. The beam shifted frequency mid-shot, bypassing the alien shields. "It works in theory," said one of her assistants, "but the power requirements are massive." "Then we'll give it more power," Daniels replied. Divert from non-essential systems if necessary. These modifications have to work. 3 decks below, Lieutenant Collins supervised the training of the boarding teams. 50 men and women in advanced combat suits moved through a mock-up of what they believed a Valkyrie ship might look like, based on the limited data available. Remember, Collins called out, we don't know their internal security systems. Expect anything. Your suits should protect against most environmental hazards, but don't take chances. One of the soldiers raised a hand. Lieutenant, what exactly are we looking for if we get aboard? Intelligence, Collins replied. Ship layouts, homeworld coordinates, weaknesses, anything that might give us an edge. This isn't just about revenge, it's about survival. 2 hours before departure, General Howard addressed the fleet from UNSC headquarters. Men and women of the Shadow Fleet, his image set on screens throughout the ships. You represent humanity's best hope. The Valkyrie expect us to submit. They expect us to be easy prey. Show them how wrong they are. He paused, his expression grave. This is not a war we wanted. We reached out in peace and were met with violence. Now we will respond in kind. But remember, we are still humanity. We fight not just for vengeance, but for the right to exist, for the right to determine our own future among the stars. As Howard's address ended, Admiral Patterson gave the order. All ships, prepare for departure. The Shadow Fleet moved silently out of Earth orbit. 50 warships, their hulls coated with light-absorbing materials, their engines modified to leave minimal thermal signatures. They were nearly invisible to conventional sensors. On the Vengeance, Dr. Wright joined Patterson on the bridge as they approached Mars. The Prometheus Protocol, she said quietly. Is it real? Patterson glanced at her. Dr. Blake had mentioned the protocol during the briefing, but few details had been shared. It's real, Patterson confirmed. A weapon of last resort. Let's hope we never have to use it. The fleet took position in the shadow of Mars's smaller moon, Deimos. From here, they would launch their first strike against the approaching Valkyrie. Admiral, Collins called out. Valkyrie fleet approaching visual range, 23 vessels, including one that appears to be a command ship. It's twice the size of the others. Patterson moved to the tactical display. Show me. The screen revealed the Valkyrie ships, angular, predatory vessels with forward sections that resembled blades. They moved in formation, approaching Mars with deliberate slowness. They're scanning the planet, Collins reported. Looking for resources, most likely. Patterson's eyes narrowed. They really do think we're just going to hand over our system. He turned to address the bridge. This is where it begins. The Valkyrie killed our people when we came to offer help. They threatened our world. They demanded our submission. Today they learn that humans don't submit easily. He tapped his comm unit. All ships, this is Admiral Patterson. Execute Attack Plan Alpha. Target the smaller vessels first. Engineer Daniels. Activate the shield frequency modulators. Around the fleet, weapon systems powered up. The modified guns glowed with energy as they prepared to fire. For Admiral Morgan, Patterson said quietly. And for Earth, the Shadow Fleet emerged from hiding, accelerating toward the unsuspecting Valkyrie ships. The element of surprise was total. Before the aliens could react, the first volley of fire struck their rear vessels. The modified weapons worked perfectly. Energy beams shifted frequency as they hit the Valkyrie shields, punching through as if the defenses weren't there. 3 enemy ships erupted in flames before they could even return fire. They're scrambling, Collins reported, excitement in her voice. Their formation is breaking. On the main screen, the Valkyrie fleet scattered, trying to respond to the unexpected attack. Their return fire was disorganized, missing the fast-moving Earth vessels. Second volley fire, Patterson ordered. Another wave of destruction hit the alien fleet. 2 more ships exploded. The others tried to regroup around their command vessel. They're sending a transmission, Dr. Wright said. Put it through, Patterson ordered. The Valkyrie commander appeared on screen, its alien features contorted in what might have been anger or surprise. Humans, it hissed through the translator. This resistance is futile. You cannot hope to. Patterson. Cut the transmission. We're not here to talk. All ships continue the attack. The battle raged around Mars. The Shadow Fleet moved with coordination that the Valthori couldn't match. Years of preparation were paying off. Admiral, Collins called out. Their command ship is breaking away. They're retreating. Patterson watched as the Valthori vessels regrouped and accelerated away from Mars, heading back toward the outer system. Let them go, he said. For now. The bridge erupted in cheers. The first battle had been a decisive victory. 6 Valthori ships destroyed. No human casualties. Patterson raised a hand for silence. This is just the beginning. They'll be back and in greater numbers. But today we've shown them something they didn't expect. He looked around at his crew, pride evident in his expression. Today, we showed them that humanity fights back. 3 weeks after the battle at Mars, the war had spread across the solar system. The Shadow Fleet didn't wait for the Valthori to regroup. Instead, Admiral Patterson took the fight to them, using hit-and-run tactics that confused and frustrated the alien forces. On the bridge of the Vengeance, Patterson studied the tactical display. It showed the positions of human and Valthori ships throughout the system. They're establishing a base on Titan, Lieutenant Collins reported. Our scouts spotted 5 of their ships landing supplies. Patterson nodded. Then that's our next target. Botting. Door to the bridge slid open, and Kyle Martinez entered. The intelligence officer had joined the Vengeance after their initial victory. Admiral, we've decoded more of their communications, he said. It confirms our suspicions. The Valthori have attacked other species before us. This is a pattern for them. How many? Patterson asked. At least 3 other civilizations in nearby systems, Martinez replied. They follow the same approach each time. They send scouts, evaluate defenses, then demand submission. If the species resists, they attack in force. Dr. Wright, who had been analyzing the data from their previous encounters, looked up from her station. These other species, what happened to them? Martinez's expression darkened. Subjugation. The Valthori strip the planets of resources and use the population for labor. Some are taken for what appears to be biological research. A grim silence fell over the bridge. Patterson broke it with a decisive order. Lieutenant Collins, prepare. Your boarding team. We're going to capture one of their ships at Titan. We need more intelligence. Collins stood straighter. Yes, sir. My team is ready. 2 days later, 3 Shadow Fleet vessels approached Saturn's largest moon. They used the planet's rings for cover, their stealth systems making them nearly invisible against the ice and dust. On the USS Defiant, the smallest of the 3 ships, Lieutenant Collins briefed her boarding team. The target is a Valthori supply vessel, she explained, pointing to the image on the screen. Smaller crew, lighter defenses. Engineer Daniels has modified our boarding pods with the shield frequency modulators. We should be able to attach directly to their hull. The 20 soldiers in front of her wore advanced combat suits designed for space operations. Each carried weapons that could be adjusted to bypass Valthori shields. Remember your training, Collins continued. We go in fast, secure the bridge and engineering, then download everything we can from their computers. Any questions? One of the soldiers raised a hand. What if we encounter crew? Non-lethal takedowns if possible, Collins replied. We want prisoners for questioning. The mission began an hour later. The Defiant slipped silently toward the Valthori supply ship, while the other 2 human vessels positioned themselves to intercept any reinforcements. We're in position, the Defiant's captain informed Collins. Launching boarding pods in 3, 2, 1. The pods shot from the ship, crossing the void to the Valthori vessel in seconds. They attached to the hull with magnetic clamps, and cutting lasers began burning through the alien metal. Collins led the first team through the breach. The interior of the Valthori ship was strange. Corridors with curved walls and a bluish light. That seemed to come from the surfaces themselves. Move quickly, she ordered through the comm system. Team 2, head for engineering. We'll take the bridge. They encountered the first Valthori just minutes into the mission. The alien was taller, then a human with the same blue skin and ridge-like structures they had seen in the transmission. It reached for what looked like a weapon, but one of Collins's team fired first, a stun round that dropped the alien to the deck. One prisoner secured, the soldier reported. They continued through the ship, meeting minimal resistance. It seemed. Most of the crew was on Titan's surface delivering supplies. When they reached the bridge, Collins was surprised to find it empty. "Secure the console," she ordered. "Start the download." One of her team attached a device to what appeared to be the main computer interface. Lights blinked as it began copying the Valthuri data. "Lieutenant," came a voice over her comm. "Team 2 here. We've secured engineering. You need to see this." Collins left 2 soldiers on the bridge and made her way to the engineering section. What she found there made her blood run cold. The room contained large, transparent containers filled with biological material. Some held what looked like organs, others entire body parts, but not Valthuri. These were from other species. "What the hell is this?" she whispered. Dr. Wright's voice came through her comm. She was monitoring the mission from the Defiant. "Lieutenant, can you get a closer look? Are those preservation tanks?" Collins approached one of the containers. Inside was something that looked disturbingly like a human arm. "They're collecting samples," she said. "Parts from different species. Get images of everything," Wright instructed, "and if possible, bring back one of the smaller containers for analysis." The data download completed 20 minutes later. As Collins's team prepared to withdraw, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. "We've been detected," her second-in-command reported. 2 Valthuri vessels just launched from the surface. "Time to go," Collins ordered. "Grab the prisoner and the sample we selected. Back to the pods." They retreated to their entry point, the unconscious Valthuri and a small container carried between them. As they reached the pods, the ship rocked from an impact. "The other Valthuri ships are attacking," came the report from the Defiant. "We're engaging them now. Get out of there." Collins's team made it back to the pods just as another blast shook the vessel. They launched away, racing back to the Defiant as the battle erupted around them. Once aboard, the Defiant broke away from the fight, leaving the other 2 Shadow Fleet vessels to handle the Valthuri ships. Its mission, to secure intelligence, was too important to risk. Hours later, safely away from Saturn, Collins delivered her report to Admiral Patterson via secure communication. "The data we recovered is extensive," she said. "Coordinates, fleet, movements, and what appears to be the location of their homeworld." Patterson's expression was serious on the screen. "And the biological samples?" "Dr. Wright is analyzing them now," Collins replied. "But it's not good, sir. They're harvesting parts from other species. We found what might be human tissue." Patterson's jaw tightened. "So they were planning this all along. The attack on our rescue fleet wasn't opportunistic. It was the first step in a planned invasion." "There's something else," Collins added. "In their computer, we found references to other species in nearby systems. Some appeared to be fighting against Valthuri control. Potential allies," Patterson mused. "Good work, Lieutenant. Return to the Vengeance. We need to plan our next move." When Collins arrived at the flagship 2 days later, she found a changed atmosphere. The early victory at Mars had given the fleet confidence. Now, with the intelligence they had gathered, there was a sense of grim purpose. Admiral Patterson called a meeting of his key officers. Dr. Wright, Engineer Daniels, Lieutenant Collins, and Intelligence Officer Martinez gathered in the strategy room. "The intelligence Lieutenant Collins's team recovered has given us an opportunity," Patterson began. "We now know the location of several Valthuri outposts and supply lines. We also know they've made enemies." He activated the main display, showing a star map with several systems highlighted. "It's time to take this shadow war to the next level, and to find ourselves some allies." The officers nodded in agreement. The fight was no longer just about vengeance. It was about stopping the Valthuri, before they could do to Earth what they had done to other worlds. The Shadow War was about to escalate. 4 months into the war, the tide had turned. What began as a desperate defense of Earth had transformed into a coordinated campaign against the Valthuri. The Shadow Fleet, once alone, now fought alongside ships from two other species, the Hugh, Artari and the Nelvians. Admiral Patterson stood in the conference room of the Vengeance, looking at the representatives of their new allies. The Artari were tall, with iridescent skin that changed color with their emotions. The Nelvians were shorter than humans, with 4 arms and large eyes adapted for the dim light of their homeworld. The Valthuri have pulled back from 3 systems, said Kelnar, the Artari commander. They are gathering their forces. As we expected, Patterson replied. Our attacks on their supply lines have forced them to consolidate. The strategy had been working perfectly. For months, the combined fleet had been striking Valthuri outposts and supply ships, never engaging their main forces directly. The Shadow Fleet's stealth technology, combined with the Artari's advanced sensors and the Nelvians' speed, made them a formidable team. Dr. Wright entered the conference room, followed by Engineer Daniels. Both women had been working tirelessly, on projects to give the Alliance an edge. Admiral, Wright said, we've completed our analysis of the Valthuri prisoners' biological data. They have a significant weakness, their sensitivity to a specific frequency of radiation. It disrupts their neural pathways temporarily. Can we weaponize it? Patterson asked. Engineer Daniels stepped forward. Already done, sir. We've modified the stun weapons to emit that frequency. It should incapacitate Valthuri troops almost instantly. The alien representatives looked impressed. Torlak, the Nelvian commander, spoke in his musical language, which the translator converted to English. This could be decisive in boarding operations. Our people have suffered under Valthuri biological experiments for too long. Patterson nodded grimly. The intelligence they had gathered revealed the full horror of the Valthuri's activities. They didn't just conquer. They harvested biological material from subjected species for experiments and enhancements to their own biology. What about the virus? Patterson asked. Ready for deployment, Daniels confirmed. Based on the data Lieutenant Collins recovered, we've created a program that will disrupt their shield generators across an entire fleet simultaneously. Lieutenant Collins herself had been busy. After the successful boarding operation at Titan, she had led similar missions against other Valthuri vessels, gathering more intelligence each time. Now she commanded a mixed force of human, Artari, and Nelvian special operations teams. Our latest intelligence confirms the Valthuri are massing their fleet near the Sirius system, Martinez reported. Nearly 40 ships, including their main command vessel. Patterson studied the tactical display. They're preparing for a major offensive. Against whom? Asked Kelnar. All of us, Patterson replied. They've never faced organized resistance before. Now 3 species are fighting back. They mean to crush us in one decisive battle. The room fell silent as everyone contemplated the coming fight. The Valthuri fleet outnumbered them, even with their combined forces. Then we must turn their plan against them, Patterson said finally. Lieutenant Collins, is your team ready for the mission we discussed? Collins stood straighter. Yes, sir. We've trained for weeks. If we can get aboard the command ship, we can plant the disruptors. It's extremely dangerous, Patterson warned. Their flagship will be heavily guarded. We know the risks, Collins replied. My team volunteered. 2 days later, the Allied fleet moved toward the Barnard star system. Intelligence suggested there was a nebula there that could provide cover for their approach. On the Vengeance's bridge, Patterson addressed his crew and, through the communication system, the entire fleet. For 4 months, we have fought a shadow war against an enemy that thought us weak, an enemy that attacked a rescue mission, an enemy that has harvested and subjugated other species. He paused, looking at the determined faces around him. Today, we face them directly. Today we show them the full strength of not just humanity, but of all free people who refuse to submit to tyranny. The fleet entered the nebula, the gases and dust providing perfect cover for their approach. According to their plan, they would emerge near the Valthuri fleet, with Lieutenant Collins's stealth ship approaching the enemy flagship while the battle raged. Valthuri fleet detected, reported the sensor officer. They are in standard formation centered around their command ship. Perfect, Patterson said quietly. All ships, prepare for attack pattern Delta. Lieutenant Collins, launch when ready. The small stealth vessel carrying Collins and her mixed team of human, Artari, and Nelvian commandos detached from the Vengeance, slipping silently toward the massive Valthori command ship. Launching in 3, 2, 1, Patterson ordered. The Allied fleet burst from the nebula, weapons firing. The Valthuri, caught by surprise, scrambled to respond. For all their technological advantages, they had never developed the tactical flexibility that came from centuries of human warfare. The battle erupted across space, energy beams and missiles crisscrossing the void. The Artari ships, with their superior maneuverability, darted between larger Valthuri vessels, drawing their fire while the heavier human and Nelvian ships delivered punishing blows. As the fight intensified, Collins's ship approached the Valthuri flagship undetected. Using the techniques perfected in previous boarding operations, they attached to the hull and cut their way inside. "We're in," Collins reported through the secure channel. "Moving to primary targets." Her team split into 3 groups, each headed for different shield generator nodes throughout the massive ship. They encountered resistance, but the modified stun weapons worked exactly as Dr. Wright had predicted. Valthuri soldiers dropped instantly when hit with the special radiation. "First disruptor placed," Collins reported, as her team reached one of the nodes. "Activating now." Across the ship, the other teams reported similar success. All 3 disruptors were in place within 20 minutes. Back on the Vengeance, Engineer Daniels monitored the signals. "Disruptors are active, Admiral. Ready to deploy the virus on your command." Patterson watched as the battle continued to rage. Despite their clever tactics, the Allied fleet was taking damage. 3 Nelvian ships had been destroyed, and several human vessels were reporting critical systems failures. "Now, Engineer, deploy the virus." Daniels activated the program. It spread instantly through the communications network the Valthuri ships used to coordinate their shields. On the main viewer, Patterson watched as the shields around the Valthuri vessels flickered and died. Immediately, the Allied ships intensified their attack, targeting weapons and engines on the suddenly vulnerable enemy vessels. "We've done it," Martinez said, disbelief in his voice. "Their entire fleet is exposed." The Valthuri command ship, realizing what had happened, broke away from the battle. A transmission came through. "This is Supreme Commander Vex Thor of the Valthuri Dominion," the alien leader hissed. "Cease your attack or we will detonate our core weapons. The explosion will destroy everything in this system." Patterson's expression hardened. "Open a channel." When the connection was established, he spoke clearly. "This is Admiral Patterson of Earth. Your threats are meaningless. Surrender your fleet now, or we will activate the Prometheus Protocol." There was a long pause before the Valthuri commander responded. "What is this Prometheus Protocol?" "A weapon designed specifically for your kind," Patterson bluffed. "It targets the same neural pathways Dr. Wright discovered, but instead of temporarily disabling your people, it will be permanent. Your entire species will be paralyzed, helpless." The silence stretched longer this time. Patterson held his breath. The Prometheus Protocol didn't exist, not in the way he described. It was a gamble based on what they knew of Valthuri psychology. Finally, the response came. "We will stand down our weapons." Throughout the fleet, the Allied crews erupted in celebration. The Valthuri, who had terrorized multiple species across several star systems, had surrendered. In the months that followed, the alliance grew stronger. 3 more species joined, each with their own stories of resistance against Valthuri oppression. Together, they formed the beginning of what would eventually become the Galactic Council. Earth, once just one small world among many, now stood as a leader among the stars. The attack on their rescue fleet, meant to cow humanity into submission, had instead sparked a resistance that freed a dozen worlds. And on every allied planet, they remembered the name of the fleet that started it all, Earth's rescue mission, whose sacrifice had ultimately saved them all.